course, it's always great to have our SportsGrid NFL insider, Adam Caplan, with us, and we are almost there. 1 week from tonight,
right.
The NFL season will kick off in Kansas City between the Ravens and the Chiefs. This is the last, as Adam just said, the last dead week before we really get things cooking. But the beginning of this week, Adam, is very busy. I know that going into Labor Day weekend, it's not, unless of course you're probably John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco. But you had plenty of activity with everybody getting their rosters cut down to 53 and filling up those practice squads earlier this week.
Yeah, look, Tuesday and Wednesday, the cut down to 53 was at 4 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday. Practice squads on Wednesday. There rarely are shockers or some real surprises. What happens is a lot of teams who know they're not going to keep certain veterans, they try to trade them. For instance, the Broncos were shopping Tim Patrick, veteran receiver, who's a pretty good player, by the way. But unfortunately, he's had 2 major lower body injuries, and he wound up being released. He signed with the Lions practice squad. Allen Robinson, I kind of knew this. He wasn't going to make it with the Giants. He moved on, I believe, to the Lions practice squad. In fact, I talked to Allen. I ran into him at Little Radio Row at the Combine, and Allen said he's going to go into broadcasting. He actually did some work for us at SiriusXM NFL Radio. But the bottom line is, Mike, as you know, at this time of year, it's just kind of like failed draft picks, veteran players. And then what happens is, though, these guys who get cut, sometimes they go into better situations, like Noah Brown, right? Noah Brown, a veteran receiver, you might remember from Dallas as a former 7th-round pick. He really did a good job for the Texans. They re-signed him on a 1-year deal. He gets cut, so he goes to Washington's practice squad. They have, no depth at receiver. He should be called up fairly soon. He might be able to get in the rotation very quickly. And your guy, Robert Woods, the former Bills receiver, who was a pretty good player early in his career when he was drafted by the Bills. He actually made the Texans roster. I thought he might be the guy who would go. But not a lot of shockers. And as you mentioned, practice squads fill up with a lot of veterans. I thought that, by the way, we should mention this. And I know people will criticize some players on the Bills practice squad, but if you look at the former high-round draft picks and veteran-proven players who are kind of on their way down, I like what the Bills did. They have guys who are clearly going to be on their active roster at some point.
And I think that's why, for a team like them, who, as we discussed last week, Adam, is in kind of a transition right now. They're not, rebuilding. They're transitioning into a next stage of Josh Allen. Having some veteran guys on your practice squad is very helpful because you're trying to build up young guys on your actual roster. So if things aren't going well, you at least have some depth there on the practice squad that you can go to. There was also some trades of note that did take place earlier this week, including, and you thought that the Tennessee Titans were going to have to move one of their quarterbacks out, and it ends up being Malik Willis.
Yeah, and look, what I find interesting is, and it's going to be fascinating, the Titans, yes, they moved Malik Willis. He had no chance to make it. I was with the Titans 2 weeks ago. It was already a fait accompli that Mason Rudolph was going to be the number 2 quarterback. The only question would be is, could they find a home for Malik Willis? They did. They got a 7th-round pick to the Packers. Now, the Packers, what they did is they cleared out 2 quarterbacks. Sean Clifford, who was a Penn State quarterback. I met Sean at the Super Bowl at Radio Row, where we were set up at SportsGrid. And Sean he cleared waivers. He's going to be in the practice squad. Now, you have to remember, Malik Willis is kind of in a new offense here. Yes, Tennessee ran a West Coast scheme, and so do the Packers, but he's got to learn it the way that they do it. And the Packers are grooming Malik Willis to be their number 2 quarterback. This is going to take some time. He's got a lot of skill, though. He could run. He's got a big arm. He's kind of a smaller quarterback, not very accurate. But this is kind of a new look for their backup quarterback position there in Green Bay. I thought that was kind of one of the interesting trades. And then, Ernest Jones, this is kind of a big deal this week. Ernest Jones made it clear he wanted an extension. The Rams could not reach a deal. And I got the feeling that they didn't think that it was going to work out for him there. And so they traded him to the Titans, who they lost a rookie inside linebacker, a Chance Campbell for the season due to a torn ACL. And talking to the Titans, man, when I was there at training camp, they love this kid, but he blew out his knee and he won't be able to play this season. And they were really light at inside backer. So they got Ernest Jones, who should wind up starting, or at least pushing for a starting job. So that helps them. And quite frankly, Mike, this Titans team, I'm not saying they're going to be like the Texans of last year or the Jaguars of 2 years ago where they came out of nowhere to make the playoffs, but Rand Carthon, you might remember his dad, Maurice Carthon, a former fullback for the Giants and Patriots. Carthon's done a phenomenal job in terms of addressing every possible need he could. You can't get every need done in one offseason, but he addressed as many as he could. And this Titans roster is mentally upgraded. The roster was terrible last season, much better. They're a team that I like to go over their total. Their win total 6.5, Mike. I actually like that. They're going to be better than people think.
Lots of injuries, of course, Adam, as usual, as we get close to the start of the year. The Steelers are dealing with several of them, along with, of course, yesterday Tomlin naming Russell Wilson as their starter for Week 1.
Yeah, let's get started before we get the injuries with Russell Wilson. I could just tell from being there. I mentioned Pharrell here on Coast to Coast, being with them for 2 days. You just see the difference and the calming influence that Russell Wilson has around the football team. He's willing to make tough throws where Justin Fields doesn't really process all that well. Really good athlete. And what you're going to see with Justin Fields is they're going to use him potentially in a third down and short, sort of a change-up quarterback, maybe runs certain formations. This will give the defense something else to think about. And we've seen this before with Arthur Smith, with Marcus Mariota, when Mariota and Smith worked together in Atlanta. But bottom line is Russell Wilson's going to be the starter Week 1 and probably going forward for a while. Now, at some point, if Russell Wilson isn't playing well or they're eliminated from the playoffs late in the season, that's certainly when you can see Justin Fields take over. But updating some injury situations, let's get to their offensive line, which, Mike, when they face those Falcons in Week 1 in Atlanta, a week from this Sunday, they've got a lot of injuries. Fatanu, their first-round pick right tackle, has got an MCL sprain. He started working this week. They're pretty hopeful he'll be able to play. But you don't like that a rookie misses part of training camp. That worries me a little bit. When you look at the interior of their offensive line, this is a problem. They just lost one of their guards due to a pectoral strain. That worries me. Nate Herbig, his brother Nick, who's on defense, Nate's out for the season with that torn rotator cuff. So that worries me. Isaac Seumalo, who I was talking about, former Eagles offensive lineman, who was their highest graded offensive lineman, I'm told, from last season. He's the guy who's got the pectoral strain. So they're down in depth, certainly on the offensive line. Broderick Jones didn't play well, the first-round pick from last season. So they got to get that going. I'm told with Roman Wilson. So that lingering ankle injury, I'm told we could update this. This is actually a high ankle sprain. That's why he's not back yet. He's working very limited this week. It's going to be touch and go whether he could be available for Week 1 against Atlanta. But look for Van Jefferson, another former Atlanta Falcon, and a former second-round pick for the Rams some years ago. He should be able to start Week 1. He had a great training camp. That's why he made it. I'm told they love his veteran influence. He almost certainly will start Week 1, and they'll work Roman Wilson in when he's ready to go. But they're really banged up. That does worry me for Week 1. You're in Atlanta where it's going to be loud. That worries me with communication with the offensive line. And let's not forget, Mike, Russell Wilson is a new starting quarterback with these guys. That does worry me for that Week 1 matchup.
It should. I got under a minute, Adam. We played a clip of John Lynch before from yesterday.
I heard that.
And I think the word that you could say is he looks finished with this entire thing and just wants it to be over and wants Ayuk to make a decision.
He does. And he does. And what you have to understand is Ricky Pearsall, the first-round receiver, you might remember he had a hamstring injury in the offseason. I'm told that's fine. The shoulder problem's lingering. He can't take contact in that shoulder. They're very light at receiver right now with that Ayuk. Even if he starts practicing next week, Mike, he hasn't practiced in months. You don't know kind of game shape he's in. They know what kind of shape he's in, physical shape, because he's in their building. But he's not practicing, Mike, where there are indications he might practice this week. That's not good.